Recording has started. This means welcome everyone to this community meeting. It was a great work. A lot of stuff has been accomplished, and I think we have really cool announcements to tell at the end of the community meeting. And to get there, let's have a quick look at the agenda for today. You can now see my screen. Again, a quick reminder on the good first issues list out there. Whenever you want to implement or get started with implementing a feature for Keptn, go there, take a look at the issues, and when you feel comfortable doing one of those, just write your name on the issue, and then it's yours. And you're very welcome to get it implemented and also to present it in the next community meeting. Then we also have here a reminder for the Keptn mailing list and the Google group. When you want to get updates on Keptn, please sign up for this mailing list, and then you will get, I think, a weekly email with all the upcoming events and all the announcements that are important to know. And this brings me now directly to the next the next section, which is the discussion of the pull requests that have been implemented this week. And for getting this started, I want to now hand over to Andreas.
Cool, thank you. So let me share my screen. Basically, I would like to present 3 pull requests, which somehow I highlight. The first one is the Helm service. So, you know, the Helm service takes care of the deployment. And for this, the Helm service requires administrator rights. And here I now added some checks whether this Helm service has the administrator rights. So basically it checks whether it has cluster admin rights. So this is necessary in order to, for example, create namespaces and then apply the Helm charts of the users. So if this is not true, of course, we print out the proper error message and the user gets informed. This was my first PR. The second one is a big change in the architecture. And I would like to show you this using an example. As you probably know, we have so-called distributors in our architecture, and this distributors are basically a convenience function, or implement the convenience function. And more precisely, distributors connect to our nuts cluster and allow to receive events for some topics. And if they receive them, they simply forward it to a responder, and you can turn recipient, and you can specify the recipient here. And what we did now in the preparation of the next release, we moved all those distributors into the pod. And for example, here I do have the configuration service, and this configuration service now has its own distributor next to the container where the functionality of the configuration service is implemented. And this has major advantages. The biggest, of course, is we do not have that much pods now, and also the container of the distributor always runs inside the same node as the configuration service itself. So basically, we remove some network boundaries because we can send over the event on localhost. Okay, and finally, the last pull request here, I removed a check whether the Keptn namespace already exists. And removing this check now allows to install Keptn multiple times. So for example, you can now install the controller plane of Keptn. And if you decide afterwards that you would like to also have the continuous delivery execution plane, you can simply type Keptn install and specifying the parameters, and this will then upgrade Keptn and install the continuous delivery plane. Okay, big changes in the architecture and the functionality. Does anyone have any questions? Nope. Then I would like to hand over to Imre, which is also a panelist and should be able to share.
Yeah, I'll share my screen. So I work on this pull request. So basically adding command labels for the Helm chart that we already have. So basically adding all of this line to all of the Kubernetes resource that we have. As you can see here, we use Helm chart release name as the instance name and managed by. Eventually, it will be changed into Helm if we are deploying using Helm. And then it's gonna be which component that this resource belongs to, because this Keptn OpenShift router services belong to OpenShift. So eventually, it will be converted into OpenShift something. It depends on the Helm template. And there are so many changes, all of them almost the same. But I make one changes, maybe a bit fundamental about how we use Helm chart. So right now, if you see here, every service will have their own object, and within that object there will be image and repository tag. Previously, what we have, the image name will be hard-coded in here. So if you look into this one, Keptn OpenShift root service, and the version is also hard-coded. So there is no way if a users want to change the image version. So what I did, I make it, I move it to the values YAML so that users can override this value to the image version that they want to use. Because previously, based on this issue, the issue in here, there is a patch given in this one. So it has specific image tag. So if we hard-coded the value, there is no way for us to use a patch like this in the future. So I think that's all for requests that I've made. Just one. Thank you.
That's really nice. And can you please go back to your values file? Because I really liked your approach so much that I also implemented this for all services in the control plane too. And I have one little minor difference. So please do not specify the tag. And I can afterwards point you how I've implemented this using the tag, because this will heavily ease our releasing process. So
okay.
I will comment on the pull request how to refine this, but the approach is really nice. And thank you for the contribution.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the feedback as well. I will hand over next to Johannes.
Really cool work that you did, Imre.
Thank you.
All right. The issues I want to present you, the first one is that we did an update of the documentation of the Keptn's bridge. And now when you go to the Keptn docs, then you will find, currently you will find the develop section, but this will be turned into the release 0.7 section pretty soon. And when you go there, you will now find the reference section, the Keptn's bridge. And in there, we now explain the features of the Keptn's bridge, which are the basic authentication, then the daily version check, the deep linking mechanism, and also the functionality that is provided in regard to the delivery assistant. And yeah, feel free to check it out, to scroll through the documentation and to get the information you want. Yeah, it's now provided. Then my second issue I was working on was related to doing a double check of the specification and checking it against the implementation. And let's just go over to the pull request. What I did is I went to the Keptn spec repo, and in this repo we maintain the specification like the shipyard specification, the specification of the SR of the SLO and SLI files, and of the remediation.yaml. And I took a look on all of those specifications, and then I double checked it with the implementation, and I came up with a minor issues, but not really big ones. At the end, it now looks good, so that we are also ready to release this Keptn specification on version 0.1.4. Then, during this week, I also started to test out the master branch of Keptn, and in this process, I identified minor issues in regard to user messages. And what I did, I polished those, and I also fixed broken links in the CLI and bridge. Let's just go there to briefly show you what I mean. What I did is I took a look at all the references that are in code, and I updated those to reference the new documentation and the new the new documentation, and I streamlined the user messages to be more user friendly. Those are bridge related, and I also went over the CLI to update the CLI as well. And last but not least, this is an important change for all of those that are using Dynatrace for monitoring, because in the Dynatrace service, which is an implementation of the Dynatrace Keptn integration, I removed the part of installing the Dynatrace One agent during the command of configuring monitoring. The reason behind that is that actually it's kind of problematic when a customer or a Keptn user already has Dynatrace installed on this cluster, and when then the Dynatrace service tries to override the Dynatrace One agent by maybe a new version. And instead of installing the One agent, I'm now showing a link to the documentation, and let me show you that by a real example. When I'm now running the command Keptn configure monitoring Dynatrace, then the Dynatrace service starts to work, and instead of installing the One agent, it just tells me that the One agent is not installed on the cluster, and for installing it, please follow the documentation provided here. And when you go there, you will be forwarded to the official documentation of Dynatrace for installing the One agent operator.
Johannes, just one quick question to this. I think it's a great move, because I think it should be a separation of concerns. The Keptn should not install the One agent, but because this is a drastic change, can we make the maybe the output a little more clear? Not clear with, I think it's clear enough, but maybe something like that this is a change. Maybe just like an attention. Something like you know, something that grabs my eyes, my attention, and saying, hey, you know, from 0.6 to 0.7 we've now changed the behavior, so if you want to monitor it's just that it doesn't get missed. I think that's what
that's true. Let me add that. I mean, it's maybe just here a need to add an additional line that
exactly
is more eye-catching.
Or maybe just start the sentence with attention uppercase. Dynatrace One agent operator is no longer installed on cluster as it used to be with 0.6. please follow the instructions. I think that's good.
All right, thanks. I will take care of that. Okay, yep, that was it from my side. Yeah, some documentation work was done, and also, as I showed you, the elimination of the Dynatrace-1 agent installation. Then Florian, you are next.
All right, thank you. Okay, can you see my screen? Yeah. All right, the changes I want to present to you today are all related to Keptn, which was the removal of the automatic configuration and setup of ingress objects in order to expose the Keptn's API. So this in turn will overall require a little bit more configuration, but on the other hand, give users more possibilities in terms of adapting Keptn to their environments where they're running it on. All right, that being said, let's just jump to the first pull request. So this one was related to the CLI. So in previous versions of Keptn, the CLI did the install command by deploying installer pod and providing it with the required values, for example, in terms of the platform you're running Keptn on, the type of ingress you want to use, etc. And then that installer basically did apply all the manifests, took care of the configuration, especially for the virtual service that was used for exposing the Keptn API, and then finally the CLI tried to authenticate automatically at the Keptn endpoint. And if you recall from last week, Andreas showed us the new way we're going to use to install Keptn, which is by applying Helm charts. So this is now a new possibility. So you can install Keptn by using the Helm CLI and applying our installer chart. But we still wanted to give users the option to use our Keptn CLI to install Keptn. And that's exactly what we did here in this issue. So now the CLI will pretty much apply the Helm chart in order to install Keptn. And yeah, that's exactly what it does. So it doesn't configure the ingress configuration anymore. So, but we will of course point you to the appropriate documentation after installing Keptn in order to make it as convenient as possible for you to configure the API access. And yeah, what's also worth mentioning here is in the install command of the Keptn CLI, we're using the Helm Go library. So if you want to install Keptn via the CLI, you don't have to have the Helm CLI installed on your local machine. All right, then let's jump right to the next issue. So this also concerns the CLI, more specifically the configure bridge command. So in previous versions of that command, it was possible to either expose or to lock down the bridge, so make it publicly available or not. And that has also been removed because of Keptn, because Keptn is not responsible of configuring ingress objects anymore. So now the new functionality of that command is to just set the credentials for the basic authentication of the bridge. Or what has also been added, you can now use the configure bridge command to output your current credentials for the bridge. So this is a nice convenience feature to retrieve the credentials a little bit easier, so you don't have to kubectl get the secret anymore, but you can directly use the Keptn CLI to do that. And also by default, the installer will now create a secret for the bridge that will be used for the basic authentication. So by default, it will be secured now. All right. Then the next one is a small change to the Dynatrace service because previously the service relied on the availability of the Keptn domain config map in order to, for example, provide Dynatrace with the Keptn API endpoint. And since we removed that config map, we replaced that with a new one. So basically the setting up the Dynatrace service will require one additional setup step, which of course is documented here in the README. So now you have to provide it with a secret containing the API token for Dynatrace and the Dynatrace tenant, and then also the Keptn API URL and the Keptn API token. And yeah, of course, in the Keptn documentation, we have a section where we describe in detail how to retrieve those values based on if you want to use a load balancer for exposing the Keptn API or a node port service or use, well, if you're using port forward, then it won't work, but for load balancers and node port and also ingresses, it will work, and we will provide you with the documentation for that. And finally, the last PR was quite a big one. So this was fixing all the integration tests that were breaking because of those changes I just presented. And yeah, basically let's have a look at this build run. So as you can see, there is no red build. Everything has run through and has been marked with a very nice green color, which we always like to see. And yeah, so hopefully those integration tests will help us during the release process, especially, and of course, during the further development of Keptn in order to guarantee that also the latest status from the master branch is always working. All right, are there any questions about those PRs?
I have one quick question on the Dynatrace service change with the Keptn API and token. Is, I assume, the only reason why this is necessary is because the Keptn service sets up the problem notification, right? I think that's the only reason. Or is there anything else too?
Exactly, that's for the problem notifications.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
All right. Yeah, with the last PR that Florian showed us, we are now done with Cap 18. The changes are implemented and also the integration tests are fixed. And this is really great work because now there is no stopper that keeps us stopping for releasing Keptn 0.7. But let's go over to the working items, which we have here. Then I'm again going from the right side, from the right to the left. Those issues have been presented today, and we still have two in the ready for review column, which is the first one that is, I think, a minor change in the CLI where you, Andreas, removed the flag of -- scheme.
Right. So this is not worth to present. So
Okay.
it is so minor.
That's so minor, then I will move it over to the done section.
Right.
And Florian, are you going to present us the upgrader next time?
I will present it next time, yeah.
Cool, thanks. Then I'm in the in progress column. There you will still see two issues from my side. It's the documentation on the new installer or the new way of installing Keptn. It's done, but I'm still waiting for an approval to get it merged into the official documentation. All right, yeah, these two pieces are necessary to have the documentation up to date so that we then also can start with the releasing process. And there is one issue that is also important. Imre, what's the status of your pull request? Are you
It's
already?
already pull request waiting for review.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So one of my last merges caused now lots of conflicts, and I can repair them if you want.
Okay.
Good. And also make the review. Perfect.
Okay, thank you very much, Andreas. And then in the assigned and committed column, we have two issues that are related to the bridge. One is maybe a bug, but it's not identified yet. But Ermin told me that he will investigate this problem next week. And the second issue that I brought in was that the version check did not work, but I have to double check whether this is still true or not when we have an official release branch of Keptn, because I think it's maybe related to a not officially released Keptn version. Then the implementation works a little bit different and not as implemented or not as designed. But again, I will double check with Airman next week whether these two issues are need to be implemented or need to be addressed. Yeah, and this brings me now to the backlog. And like last week, we have the last and ultimate issue there for releasing Keptn, and I will now pull it over because we are ready to create a release branch of the master branch, and we'll then move on with the testing phase of the release. And this will happen by tomorrow. Tomorrow we will create a release branch and we'll then work through the checklist that we have provided here. It is a quite long checklist. But what we will do is that we first release the Keptn specification, as I double checked them with the implementation. Then after that, we will also release the examples for Keptn. And when this is done, we will take care of releasing the Kubernetes utils and the Go utils. These two packages are required for Keptn as they implement a lot of utility functions. And after that, yeah, we have to take care of also releasing Keptn contrib services that are required for the tutorials. And you will see them there. And when this is done, we will go over to release Keptn so that we have a release branch that we then can test. All right, yeah, then the preparation phase, this phase focuses on getting the documentation ready, as it should be up to date by today, but still maybe minor changes will be necessary. And the same is true for the tutorials. The tutorials also need to be updated since a couple of features changed or were implemented and also need to be adapted. And this brings us then over to the testing phase. The Keptn team will perform tests on GKE and keys. The full installation we will try out on GKE and keys, and also the quality gates use cases we will also do on GKE and keys. And next to those two Kubernetes environments, we are also testing Keptn on OpenShift 3.11. And here is the checklist for doing the tests there. And when that's done, we will then officially release all the contrib services so that they are then tagged on GitHub. And last but not least, we will do the official release of Keptn, and we will then publicly announce it via Slack and by sending out an email to everyone who is part of the Google group. Yeah, a long list, still a couple of things to do, but we are getting closer and closer to the point where we have Keptn 0.7 released. When someone wants to help us with taking over some testing effort, please feel free to reach out to us, and we will let you know when you can start testing or when you can maybe read through the documentation. Yeah, just ping us on Slack or maybe raise your hand in this community meeting, and then we will find a way to let you be part of the testing or preparation phase of the release. All right. Are there any questions so far? Yep. That because I'm releasing or doing all these tasks for the release will be done by, I assume, also by Florian, Andreas, my side, and Ermin, who will be coming back to the office by next week. And we will, yeah, keep the checklist updated so that you can see the progress of the releasing process and also the point where then the release is available. And maybe when you want to start working on an issue, on a good first issue, I pulled in two nice issues. Imre, you're assigned yourself to that one that says in the CLI, the kubectl version check reports if no connection to cluster could be made. Are you still okay taking that one?
Yeah, I'm still okay. I'll do it after this. My latest pull request is reviewed.
Okay. Thank you very much. And then I have another one that was actually identified by or written down by Andy. The problem is that when you do a get on the /event endpoint, then the result or response returns a 500 error, but this is actually not true because the internal service did not break. And instead of returning a 500 error, a 404 should be returned, which is more closer to what the response should be, because in this case, an event is missing and 404 says that, yeah, resource is not available or not found. I will leave it in there. When someone from the community wants to take it, just feel free to write your name down or to raise your hand by just commenting and posting a comment, and then I will assign you to the issue. There was now a question coming in: will the upgrade path from 0.6 X to 0.7 be possible with all the changes to install? Yeah, they will be, but maybe can someone take this question?
Yeah, sure. So the installer will take care of upgrading. The upgrader will take care of upgrading from 0.62 to 0.7. And it will migrate all the events and projects that were available in previous installations of Keptn. So you will still have the data to available in your new Keptn installation. There will be some configuration necessary in order to make the CLI connected to the API again, but that shouldn't be too much of an effort.
And I also want to point out that the upgrader is coming in two ways, and let's go over to the documentation. When you go to upgrade Keptn, then there are two jobs available. One job takes care of upgrading your Helm charts or Helm releases to Helm 3. This one does it not. And the second job will upgrade it automatically. And in case you are going with the job that does not the Helm upgrade, then we provide here guidance on do this manually. For each release or each service that you deployed with Keptn, and this will then, or with this guide, you can upgrade from Helm 2 to Helm 3 manually. All right. Any other questions related to the release, to the upgrader? All right, yeah, this one is answered now. Perfect. Okay, yeah, since we went over the working items, we discussed those that are in the pipeline and we are working on the next week. We are at the end of the community meeting for this week. It was a little bit shorter compared to the previous ones, but that's okay. And this means that we are now at the end. Feel free to ping us on Slack when you want to get an update on the release. Otherwise, we will present it next week in the community meeting and we'll, I think, announce it there. Okay, then when nobody has any other questions, I will say thank you for joining this community meeting and see you next Thursday.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
So, geklaufen.
1 second, I have to stop recording.